What's your favorite book to film adaptation? This one was misunderstood. It's kind of a beautiful disaster. Honestly, you're lying if you said you didn't feel something while watching this movie. Peter Jackson swung for the fences, and maybe you can say he missed, but you can't say he didn't hit anything. It's day 88 of 365. Today's movie, The Lovely Bones. This one's directed by Peter Jackson, who's back on the Daily Stub reviews after King Kong, and stars Saoirse Ronan, Mark Wahlberg, and the Tooch. I love the Stanley Tucci. Honestly, this is an odd one to have on the review. It came out to mixed reviews. It was not widely very liked at the time, and yet it went to the Oscars and it was a commercial success. I saw this one as a fan of Peter Jackson at the time. Not only were the Lord of the Rings movies basically my whole personality at this point, I even have one of the leaves of LOTR on my arm as a tattoo, but I had also seen a few of his movies outside of Lord of the Rings at this point. The Frighteners and Meet the Feebles specifically, before walking into The Lovely Bones. So as far as wide cast nets for genre pieces, I actually kind of knew what I was getting in for here. Also, worth mentioning, Meet the Feebles was banned in the United States at the time, so I had to dig that one up to watch it. That's how intense my love was for Peter Jackson. And so I wasn't super surprised by what we got here. It's tonally all over the place, but that was very, very different for 2009. Or rather, 2010 when I saw it, according to my ticket stub, but this didn't get a wide release until January for me, even though technically it came out in 2000. We're kind of getting all the in-between movies out of the way at this point. Seeing this as a young person was very uncomfortable for me, to be honest, and I mean that as a good thing, especially for a growing film critic. I understand why this one didn't sit well with audiences. I understand that the book and the movie are very different from each other, and that can be very upsetting for people, which also isn't very far from many of the criticisms of Lord of the Rings at the time. He made an action trilogy out of a fantasy novel series. The same thing's happening here. That's kind of what you get when you get the crazy movie and adaptation guy to do your movie adaptation. Watching it in 2025, it's actually more uncomfortable for me. Watching a 14-year-old go through not only this visceral, awful experience of abuse and murder, but then also to have to navigate something this existential during a time where she was barely thinking about her first kiss. That's just so harsh to put a young character through, and I think only Saoirse Ronan could bring this kind of thing to the big screen. Now, she wouldn't get real big until Lady Bird, and that's deserved in that case, but it's kind of cool to see that she's always had this kind of presence on screen. The movie asks a lot of its audience as far as the depth and width of the emotional experience you're going to have to go through to watch the movie. People say that it's lifeless, but I don't get that from it when I watch it in 2025, and especially with its score and color palette. I see a lot ticking under the hood of this one, so let's pop that hood and talk about the three things that I loved about The Lovely Bones. The first thing that I like so much about The Lovely Bones is Peter Jackson, the adaptation king. Now, this is probably going to ruffle some feathers, and I want to state that on Daily Stub Review and within Ticket Stub Movie Club, I like to preface with the idea that all of my opinions are subjective. I don't feel that this is the one way to look at things, but I have found ways to enjoy movies more and to not have to fall away to this pessimistic cinema sins way of looking at film. Every movie is a miracle, and so I like to celebrate them for what they are. When it comes to adapting books into movies specifically, you're gonna lose half the crowd. A lot of people's imaginations are so active and run so wild, in a good way. I mean this is a compliment, that there's no movie you could make that would match what they imagine. The way that we can cinematize things in our brain that we're reading off the page is kind of unmatched. And so a filmmaker's job is not to adapt every single page of a book into a movie. Their job is to make a film experience off of the experience that they got from the book. Peter Jackson's own method for this is actually to not reread the book intently when he's writing his screenplay. What he does instead is he remembers the way each section made him feel and then adapts that feeling into cinema. I think that is a really interesting way to take a look at this kind of adaptation. And when you do this with the movie to the book, they are two very different experiences, even up to the point of the author having issues with the manuscript that was used in making this movie. I get that. I totally understand people wanting a one-to-one, but in my opinion, When you watch Lord of the Rings, you're watching an action adaptation of a fantasy story. So when you watch The Lovely Bones, you're watching a dramatic story, an even arguably Oscar bait kind of performance that is going for something different than what they were getting out of the book, to the degree of even changing the ending, which I think makes it more palatable to a movie audience. Now, the people that exist in both book and movie world are going to be even harder to make happy. And this is where you found a lot of the critics for Lord of the Rings. I even had someone on the podcast recently talking about how they wished more of the book could have been adapted to screen. And I get that. I think that's very valid. But I always want to defend a filmmaker saying, I need to make cinematic sequences out of a book that people love and respect, while still honoring that, but also honoring their independence as a filmmaker. Peter Jackson is the adaptation guy at this point, especially in cinema during 2009 and 10. So I just want to go out on my limb and defend his choices to make something a little different and a little unexpected too. If you've already read the book, you want to still have some kind of an exciting new experience when you get to the cinema. And I don't think he was wrong for making the choices that he did. I know this is why it led to the critical panning that it got, but it was still a commercial success, and it's still deeply impactful as a movie. So let's get into that in my second part. The second thing that I love about this movie so much is Stanley Tucci. The Tucci is here to show us how it's done. No one's career could survive doing this kind of role and coming back from it. He's helped here by the fact that he's got amazing makeup with his contact lenses and the pedo stash that he's rocking. But on top of that, his performance is the reason he took this movie to the Oscars. The way that he changes his vocal speech patterns, the way that he switches between his ability to be a weird creep when talking to kids and then dressing himself up as an adult when he's speaking to the police, bobbing and weaving his way through this story is incredible. He's playing more like 3 characters across this movie, and he is keeping the whole thing going. Mark Wahlberg's excellent in his own right. This is one of the few movies where you'll see him really acting his ass off because of the talent on display here. And Saoirse Ronan is also fantastic, as I said, for her age, but the Tooch is the reason this movie works. From the get-go, within the first half hour, we witness the events that lead to our main character's death. That's harrowing and frightening, and a big reason for the tonal shift in this movie as well. There's so much happening in this movie, and so much of it goes from fantastical to Law and Order SVU that it's kind of hard to keep track, and this is a big reason the movie is asking you to have such a wide net for your emotions. I really enjoy Tucci bringing not just a villain, but a full character to the movie that we can be rooting for to be ended by the end of this. I just absolutely adore it, and I think he might have even deserved to get the Oscar for this one outside of just the nomination. The third thing that I'd love to highlight about this movie for you are the highlights of this movie, and I mean that specifically with the colors and the lighting. Now, I can hear criticisms about Lord of the Rings being a little muddy, a little grayscale, a little green and nature colored. There's not a lot of color popping going on. And when you compare that to Jackson's previous work, he's got a lot more colorful movies in the canon. So people wanting to switch back to a more popping color palette, I totally understand. This was the perfect opportunity for that. The fantastical setting of limbo or heaven or the in-between place that she goes to is a great place to bring those colors out. But honestly, it's the colors in the real world that really stand out to me. Their way of making the 70s pop as a color palette really absolutely works. And the way that they play with light through yellow and blue are not only reflections of the character's costume that she's wearing when she's murdered, but are played up all the way through that scene. When we open the hatch to the hangout club underground, the area around her is blue for the night, and the yellows of the fire light up her face. When she goes down inside and she's switched from the blues of our real world into the colors of what will be her final resting place, I think that the movie's telling us a story with its color palette and matching it along to the costuming. That's just excellent fucking filmmaking. This happens across the rest of the movie, helping us see the way that she's switched from our real world into the more ethereal, ghostly world, and keeps that moving all the way across to the end of the movie. until we get to the finale, which is cold. Revenge is a dish best served that way, and I think that the movie ending with the color palette draining as the life finally drains from our killer, oh boy, you just gotta love that kind of filmmaking. And this is why I'm okay with them taking the chances of changing things up from the book. If I remember correctly, the manuscript for the movie was gonna originally end with Mark Wahlberg and Stanley Tucci becoming friends. Can you believe that? I would have been irate had I seen that in 2025. I might have accepted it in the theater when I was young, but I don't know that for sure. I know now that based on the filmmaking I'm seeing at hand, I would not have enjoyed that. But I'm really curious. This one is really gonna split the audience. So what do you think? Is Lovely Bones one that is much better than it's been critically received as? Or did you like it at the time and you've stuck to your guns across the way? I'm really curious if this is one you'll even check out again just for how dark and broad this story ends up being. Our next one is a post-apocalyptic samurai movie. We're talking the Book of Eli next. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, YouTuber.
Okay.
Yeah.
Want to make a video?
I'm making one right now.
If you don't mind me asking, what's the topic?
So I've been saving all my ticket stubs from going to the movies since like 2004. So I've got like hundreds of them. And I'm doing one a day, like rewatching the movie and then coming out here and reviewing it. Because it's cool background, you know what I mean? All the lights and stuff.
Nice. So what movie are you about to...
The Lovely Bones. Yeah, it was... Stanley Tucci murders a 14-year-old. Yeah, kind of a crazy one. Yeah. I'm literally about to say exactly that.
All right, man. Let's do your thing.
I appreciate that. Thank you.